I keep expecting to hear a little bit of music trill saying the webinar has now started, and it just doesn't happen.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
it's Heidi ho to everyone, and welcome aboard. It's good to have you on and congratulations, by the way. You've made it through another day and another month, as it seems. Well, there's a few hours to go, to be fair, but you seem to have made it through another season, even. New season tomorrow. It becomes autumn here in Australia, and no doubt spring in the northern hemisphere. Hope you enjoy that
Abs-
beautiful weather, mate.
Yeah, well, absolutely, and the spring really started this week for us. It's been a stupidly hot few days. It's considering it was still winter, we were up to like 18 to 20 degrees.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's a bit rough for you.
it's been incredible. It's been absolutely incredible. I mean,
Well,
worryingly
it's
so, I have to
beautiful,
say.
really, but I mean, you can't complain about that, obviously.
No, no. Well, I mean, yeah, the as I say, certainly wouldn't complain, but maybe a little bit worrisome at the same time.
In so much as climate change.
Yeah, this is the hottest February that we've ever had, and the swings between this year and last year. Last year we had the beast from the east, and this year now we've got uh, the summer
It's from
from
where?
well, it was from Morocco, so it's got to be something that rhymes with Morocco.
Oh, okay. The Choco from Morocco.
Yeah, that'll do us.
Could have been the there's another one, but I won't use that on air. What was I going to say? It was something about the weather. That's right. Did you see that link I sent you?
I did. Yes, I did indeed, mate. Yeah,
Have a look at that when you get a chance.
yeah, I haven't actually watched the video, but I can see I've read a little bit around the text. Not that there's that much, but a little bit around the text. I like the fact it's got green in the language, so I will be definitely looking at that.
True blue Aussie stuff, mate. That's what it's all about.
The question is, do you have to be kind of green fingered? Because I love the outside and the thought that I could actually grow stuff, but I always seem to destroy it.
Anyone can do it, mate. You just got to get the formula right. That's all.
Right. Okay. All right.
That's what this guy's all about. Actually, he's a little bit commercialized in that what he teaches, he charges for, obviously. But you
Yeah.
know, he's only doing what we all need to do. You know, we all need to eat, so there's no point doing what you do well and not getting paid for it. It's as simple as that. And he does it very
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
He's a world renowned authority on the subject,
Right.
and he travels the world, greens deserts and stuff like that. You know, he proves that you can grow crops in the desert easily with virtually no rainfall. It's just a system that he teaches called permaculture.
Right. Right.
And as I say, guess where it was born, mate? Right here in Tassie, Australia.
Ah, well, it's you're gonna have some love for it just for that fact alone.
Well, that's part of the reason why I'm here, is to learn all these things and see if I can reduce my footprint. That's fairly large on the planet. I have to say, I haven't been
Yeah.
terribly kind to the planet, but we're trying to rectify that anyway. And how we buy into that, I'm not too sure. But in terms of trading, but yeah, keep your eye out
Yeah.
on anything that's got permaculture in it. It's definitely the way to go.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there'd be a way. I'm sure there's some way that it can be bought into. But everything seems to be able to be bought into
I
these days,
was
doesn't there?
watching on YouTube as your screen flashes on when you talk.
Yeah, which is not good, is it?
No, not really. It's just the rest of the Skype conversation going on.
Yeah, yeah. It's oh yeah, oh yeah. There we go.
But that's okay. It's an open book here. There's nothing to hide. That's a fact. Look, I suppose we should talk about the fact that it is the last day of the month, and I've firmly got my queue in the rack. I've got absolutely no intention of adding to my positions that I've already got, and management is pretty much all I'm interested in today. So I guess analysing the charts is a moot point for me. I'm really not that interested, and I don't want to get myself interested, to be fair, on this the last day of the month when the institutional world are looking to close their positions. Some of them might be looking to make some money. That's true, if they've had a shocking month. But I don't know that that would be the case with too many traders. It seems to have been a fairly decent month, I would have thought, for trading, and I don't want to give back what we've got in the bank already. So I've got no intention of really actually adding to any positions today. How about yourself?
Yeah, the same, mate. Do you know what? Interestingly, I was just looking at that YouTube. It's only you and I here.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, well, it's two watching, and I'm watching, and you're watching.
We're all the beautiful people.
But no, you're absolutely the same. Anyway, mate, I've got I think a small chance that the FTSE could keep coming down, and well, maybe better than a small chance. I think the FTSE could keep coming down, but maybe it just doesn't happen now for this week. And I'll show you what was going on yesterday. And I was in a good place in the end yesterday, because my intention was that after the Tuesday's scenario, when price action came down to this point, aggressively bounced back up again. I knew that if it came down here and showed signs of holding, that I would get out, and that's exactly what I did. You know, when it came down to here, I managed to get it off around about this area here, so pretty much at the lows. So somewhere in this area here, I took it out. It did dip just down a little bit further, another 10 pips or so, and then just started to kind of carve out a few signs and signals that it was going to hold again. The actual signs and signals that I saw were on shorter term time frame. So when I was looking at it and making my decision, I could see that it was only the 15-minute chart, but you know, it was all about times, the time frame, because I said it was going to be around about midday, which this is the midday bar here. So so when it came down and continued to hold along here, that looks like I was just getting this higher low on the 15, and even though it was only a short-term time frame, that was enough for me to say, you know what, this I've been here once before. I missed taking my profit here. Let's take profit now at this point. So ended up being around about 90 pips, which equates to nearly a 3-to-1 when it, yeah, which, you know, I can't grumble with that at all, mate. So I was probably around about 3 to, so yeah, it's probably been around about a 6% month, which is just shy of what I try and aim for, but it's still pretty solid. I'm still pleased with that, because the numbers have only really started ratcheting up this way in the last few months. You know, previously, if I'd got 3%, I would have been more than happy with that. But you know, I'm trying to kind of get into the higher realms of like 7 to 10%. So I am pleased with it, and maybe just given a few later entries, then that would have bumped it just over the line. So decent month, I think, and considering we're in a bit of a range as well, or we have been in a bit of a range for most of it, when we look back at this daily chart. This was you know, this is really part of the month, and in actual fact, I guess we are still in a range. It's fairly wide range, but we are still in a bit of a range. I unfortunately missed the upside move altogether. So I think even given that, the fact that I've missed this whole move to the upside, I'm pretty pleased with a decent return in the end. The question now comes, you know, what happens next? Because if I am looking for a move now to the upside, which I am, I think that the next leg, I think, is going to be up rather than down. Does this prove to be a low enough point to me to get in? And I have to answer at this stage that it's not, and it's going to be tricky now, because if I see buy signals here, which they are there are a few buy signals in existence, but if I see buy signals here, what do I do? Because what I really want is a buy signal just a little bit lower, or even substantially lower, and these lines are kind of giving me a little bit of a guide, but at the same time, possibly a little bit of a headache. You know, I'm not touching the lines that I'm drawing here. So I've got to figure out why here. I mean, it doesn't really make any sense to me why this area has ended up being the hold. Maybe because of what's going on over here, but it's so scruffy, and even if I bring it up to a longer term chart here, it's still, you know, the weekly chart. Maybe this bar would suggest that you know, we have it, but even then it's kind of stretching it a little bit. You know, the most recent kind of price action would still be a lot more palatable, but I am looking at an inverted head and shoulders possibly. Now, whether it appears on the weekly or whether it appears on the daily may be of question, but what this does kind of say is that there is maybe a little bit more downside coming, but it might want to hop up a little bit first. So there might even be another entry to go short here. Still aiming for one of these lines down here. This line would give it the end of March, which would be the Brexit negotiation time frame, which at that point we would either see the inverted head and shoulders shoulder level break down or possibly start to bounce and then you know, back into bull mode for the FTSE. So there's more questions than answers at this particular stage, and all I can do when I have more questions than answers is to wait for an answer to come, and it inevitably will. You know, whether it's through this particular phase or another phase later down the line is maybe a bit of a question, but I don't really have too much clarity as yet. And I also have to bring in, you know, what are the fundamentals telling me, and the first thing that is quite significant, in my opinion, is the fact that the rally has come from the trade dispute. The easing back has probably come more out of the pound strengthening than anything else. Even though, in saying that, let's have a quick look at the S&P. Yeah, you see, there's not the same kind of desire to sell off the S&P. So it seems that the trade dispute is likely to take center stage again pretty soon, even though the S&P is at a significant high here. It would technically suggest that we could get something of a drift back to the downside. So, you know, there's a few different things showing here. There's the fact that we've got a technical area which I'm sure investors are going to be more than happy to try and sell off. We've got a V-shaped recovery. This is the S&P V-shaped recovery, which do end up kind of snowballing fairly fast to the downside when they come, because the upside has been so aggressive. You know, there's no doubt that a downside move is due, and probably a downside move that takes us back into this lower area here is probably due, and it might happen fairly quickly. And then flipping back to the FTSE, we've got trade war disputes that are clearing up, but you know, so far unclear. So I suppose the way I'm reading this chart right now is if it follows the S&P, maybe we end up getting a slightly higher right shoulder, and it ends up a slightly higher neckline, not right shoulder, and it ends up doing this. And then maybe falling down. So maybe this move, you know, back up again might be somewhere along.
Certainly, the lower time frames are looking like they're forming a base here, and
that's right.
The last 30-minute jobbo has just come back above that, so it to me looks like a bit of a false break of that bottom.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely, mate, absolutely, and you know, that would just pop it up around about 30 pips from where we are. So if that does pop up 30 pips, then, you know, coming back to the lower time frames here, all that's going to do is give us something that was an equal lower high. So that doesn't actually, when I think of the structure of this, the trend on the 4-hour chart, what I've got is this area of support broken down, lower high, a lower low, but really, I don't think that there's a change of trend when it pops up. I think it's just an equal area. So I think I'm probably going to hit this one more time.
Your daily pivot's probably in that area as well.
Let's have a quick look at that. Yeah. Well, do you know what? I don't really want it to be the daily pivot. I want a longer term time frame if possible, because I don't want to see this today. I don't even want to see it tomorrow. What I'd really like is to see it on Monday.
Yep.
I don't mind if it's tomorrow. More like the weekly, actually. More like the weekly. It might just, well, the weekly's a little bit high, so that would, in many respects, this would help if this didn't get up here, in the next couple of days, and the weekly pivot step down into this area next week. That would really help, and I'd be really keen to take a trade if that was the case. If I got this kind of like getting back into this area next week, what would be great is if we kind of meander around here for a bit, little bit of sideways price action. Same tomorrow would be really good, and then we pop forward. The other thing with this is that when we come back to a weekly chart here, the weekly chart has just given us what is starting to look like an evening star. So if that was the case and we do end up closing near the lows here, that would suggest that any move back to the upside next week would probably have some fans to push it back down again. So I'd really like a hold for the next few days. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, and I'm not even analysing that is what I see. I guess what I'm saying is that that would certainly encourage me to start trading again next week as early as Monday, because the analysis would effectively do what I'd be looking for, not necessarily anticipating, but what I'd be looking for. So a little bit on hold right now, but that's just going to be the way it is for right now, mate. I've just got to wait and see if the patterns do what I want it to do, because I still think there's a little bit more downside here before looking for upside.
Okie dokie, but you're really not looking to trade today, are you?
No, absolutely not. I think what would be great is for this to just make itself clearer for the next couple of days. Oh, we are being joined. Christo's in and Pedro's in, so there's only one of us being shown. Okay, no problem. How you doing, guys? You all right? I don't know what your feeling is on the market and what your trading stance is for the next couple of days, but this is tricky. End of February is today. The end of the week is tomorrow, and the start of March is tomorrow. So that's another thing that has to come into my mind, and I don't know if it's the same for you, Jeff, but that has to play a part for me. If I get to a point of a switch in time, and it happens, right the way, in the middle of the week, towards the end of the week, like it has, I think it actually makes decisions a little bit tricky. And we were talking about this yesterday, how one period can flip from the last. And really, tomorrow is the start of a new period, but it's also the end of a period. So that's another reason that I'm not too keen for the next couple of days to probably make any trading decisions.
Yeah, look, next week's, effectively the first week of the month, if you like, from a trading point of view. You'll have all sorts of news coming out. That'll be led by Aussie interest rates. We'll go into NFP at the end of the week. There'll be all sorts of news coming out next week, and data releases. So, the market will come back entirely fresh into the new week. And for that reason, as I said before, institutional traders would right now be thinking, how do I wind up this position so that we can start afresh on Monday, come back on? And certainly that will be the case, I would think. There'll be some desperados, of course, who haven't had a good month, and they'll be probably looking to get a bit back if they can. That doesn't interest me at all. So I'm more than happy just to shut up shop and say, well, okay, it's been a reasonable month. Let's hope it continues into March. That's what I'll be doing. I've got a couple of things I need to point out, mate, before we
let's do it
much further. And although the opening's not going to be that significant today, we will take a look at it, of course. Firstly, Euro Yen. Those, actually, I don't know. Christel and Pedro, I don't know too well, but more than happy to get to know you guys well. I don't know if you would have been in my daily trades, which I take in the mornings, of course, in the morning TTR shows. I took Euro Yen yesterday and got triggered into that. Look, I haven't given up on this by any stretch because I think this is a pretty good position to take. So management on this, I'm just about to divulge. I think I'm wrong if price gets below the open of this candle here. That will be my get wrong point. So I've actually put a hedge in there underneath that that open. But really, there's a massive target up here, and I just can't get it out of my mind. And I think that's half the reason I took the trade. The other is we had a break and back test, as Ash calls it, retest as I call it. But at the end of the day, it has retested the backside of this trend line in confluence with this horizontal level, which is 125.80. So, whilst I'm never happy being out of the money, I still think this is a reasonable trade, and I'm not going to do anything except put that hedge in place, which I've done underneath the open of this bar. And if we do go south, then I'm wrong at that point, I believe, and we should come down to weekly pivot at least, and maybe even challenge the bottom of the channel. If that's the case, then I'll probably get money out of this, despite the fact that the first trade will lose. I position myself that way, so that's why I've hedged that. And if it does go bad, then it'll not be so bad, if you understand what I'm saying. But if it goes, I'm not in that hedge, of course, at this point. Price has to come down to this open. In other words, it's got to reverse. This bar has to reverse now. And I'm hoping that's not going to be the case, and the Euro Yen takes off here. I'm a little bit bullish the Euro today as well. And there's the chart. And the reason is we've had a pretty big reversal bar. We've had a breakout of this range here that we've been in, and now we've had a retest at the top of that range. So I think today that we can force our way through to this level, this confluence area of monthly pivot and resistance trend line. Look, ordinarily I'd be looking very, very closely at it and trying to get an entry into this, but I've got that covered pretty much on Euro Yen. If Euro Yen does go, or sorry, if the Euro goes, Euro Yen will go with it, so it doesn't really matter that much that I'm not going to get the Euro. I'm okay with that. Euro pound, I'm sure you've heard me say many, many times this week that I'm going to do absolutely nothing with this trade until it hits 84, which is, if I can get this bloody thing right, there we go, which is here. I'll probably rethink at that point, expecting a bounce. So maybe what I'll look to do is close the position. We've already banked twice on this. I might close the position here and wait for a better entry, a re-entry if you like. It's not there yet, of course. We don't count our chickens before they hatched, but this does look to be a good trade, I'd have to say. And hopefully that will greet the judge, which is right down here at around about 84. I don't think I'd be willing to trade it through that level at this point. It'll depend if and when it gets there, of course, as to what's happening on the Brexit scene. So, yeah, never say never, but really my intention is to just leave this until it gets to at least that level and see what happens then. If it rockets through it, then, hey, we'll keep it open. What else have we got? Oh, EuroCAD. We traded EuroCAD in the show yesterday, and we had our TP1, can't remember where. That was our entry level TP1. TP1 was here somewhere, and TP2 was weekly pivot, just above weekly pivot. We didn't hit TP2, as you can see, but as soon as I saw this, what I did was move my stops from up here to down here. just above the swing, which actually gave me around about a break-even trade, and that is, as you can see, that's now been taken out with the euro crashing through those resistance levels this afternoon. So I'm out of euro CAD. I'm hoping that you saw that coming as well if you're in the trade, and you're now, well, if you're not out of it, your stops are still way up here, so they haven't been hit, but you would be in negative position at this point. Oh no, you're probably around about break even actually, because you've closed TP1. I'll leave that up to you how you want to manage that, but I'm now out of the trade having gone through that swing high. So the only thing I've got at risk is euro yen, and I'm not serious at risk at that because I've got a hedge placed underneath here, and euro pounds well and truly in profit, and really that's my week and my month pretty much done. If euro yen gets up here, then I've had a pretty damn good week. If it doesn't and gets down here, I'll probably actually have a better week because I'll make more money if it gets down here than I will if it gets up here. Kind of crazy, but I think that's the way to look at that, and that's why I've taken that action on that particular position. So that's around about me, mates. That's where I'm at, and really no intention to change anything at all. Were we going to talk about something today that has escaped my mind?
We were going to talk about some shares, yeah, just some share picking. The market is just about to open up on the FTSE 100, so let's just have a quick squiz of that, and then let's have a chat about.
Sure. Christo, to answer your question, I can answer the second one. I can't answer the first one because I don't trade seasonals. Powell said nothing that we didn't expect him to say. He said that exactly the same as we had in the FOMC statement, the same as we had in the minutes, that the tightening of monetary policy was not at a hold or not at a standstill, but it was not going to move. Angus is in the house, guys, as usual. So g'day, g'day, mate. So yeah, nothing new that I'm aware of, unless you've got something more to add on that, Ash. But seasonals, I can't help you with.
When it comes, let me just have a quick look at that. How about downward seasonality, gold, oil, bay? Yeah, well. Yeah, but as Jeff says, when it comes down to seasonals, Julian is the king of that stuff, and he uses it very, very successfully. I do check the seasonals, but very briefly. It's not really a basis of how I trade, but interestingly, the guy that I suppose taught me to trade was big on seasonals and the way, and he basically did his own seasonal indicators. He was that keen on it. So we've got to respect that. So oil base versus defense, I guess, from OPEC, volatility, Nigeria and Venezuela. Yeah, I mean, the other side of that question, when it comes down to OPEC, Nigeria and Venezuela, I'm not clear enough on those particular events to say whether it's going to be driving oil. We should have a quick look at oil, but I'm not clear enough on whether that's going to be driving oil. I did read something the other day about the US stockpiling a bit of oil, so I'm maybe cutting back on their inventories for oil. So there would have probably been more support for oil than resistance. But let's have just a quick look on it.
It's at a nice support level. In that we've got the weekly pivot and the daily pivot sandwiched together exactly where price is right now. Whether it's due for a bounce there is a good question.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes down to it with oil, we have seen such a huge sell-off, in the tail end of last year, and certainly a carving out of what looks like an accumulation pattern down here. I'd still be much more interested in upside and downside, but let me just let me just kind of do a little bit more on this and see if there's not really anything that would get me into the downside. When I look at this on a shorter term time frame, I've got really yeah, I would say maybe sliding into here and then looking for another jump again. There's nothing really crystal clear here when it comes down to oil. So I'd probably hold on to that and wait for a clearer picture. If you're really keen to trade it, then as Jeff says, this support level here starts to come into play, and breaking down that.
For me right now.
Yeah, then you got a level up here as well. So that would look pretty good. I mean, if you're looking to trade this to the downside, that would start to kind of bring it into picture for me that this area, but starting to break down, would probably give you some significant movement back down to at least this level here. So there's probably just enough room to trade that lower. Aside from that, I'd be looking for upside when it comes down here. I don't know. I'm not aware of the stories, as I say. So if those stories kind of came out, and if I looked into it and the story suggested that we were going to get a decent move to the downside with oil, then I would be probably advocating a sell-off and looking for it to get through this level. But I think I'd be much keener at this stage to see if it can come back down here and just give that equal low before moving up again. I'm just going to check to see what other evidence there is here. Yeah, I think it's got a little bit more room. I kind of do see why it would sell off. Do you know where I think it may well go? I think it's probably got enough room to get back to this point here. So I think my target would probably be around about the 59 level, 59.09 I've got here, but around about the 59 level. So until oil gets to that point, I wouldn't really be looking for downside. I think I'd be much more interested in upside. So intraday movements down, I think could be of interest to provide something of some upside. And this is a pretty strong level as well. When you look over here, I mean, I hadn't seen this before, but when you look over here, right back in February 2017, so pretty much a year ago, this area was supported, and now we're back through that point. If this area can hold up, coming down here intraday and buying up, and if that area does hold, then I think this is the next level to look for. But same way that the S&P rally has been so aggressive, as it will probably give it some kind of dip. I think the same with this. This has been a really aggressive sell-off, so I'd be much more interested in looking for upside. And so far, the upside move has been just a bit more palatable. That when it kind of gives you these lovely swings, goes up, breaks a level, comes back, supports a level, and goes up, and breaks a level again. If it comes back and supports a level, then I think a nice steady move to the upside would be my preference with oil. Just on the technicals, when it comes down to stories, I'm just not that up on them.
I'll just quickly give you my opinion, and it's very, very similar to what you just said. In fact, I think you've got pretty much the same lines that I do. The only difference that I've got here is this channel. That's the daily chart, of course. I've got 59 and 50, probably 55 here. I've got it as 54.91. You could kind of sneak that up there, but I like the confluence here, so that kind of works for me. But I definitely see this level up here.
Yeah, Chris is saying it's actually in relation to the FTSE. Well, I have to say, mate.
Your bag.
Yeah, do you know? I have to say that there's nothing that has been reported on oil that has sparked my interest in regards to the FTSE recently. It's not that I that there's no correlation, but I honestly think that the moves that we are seeing on the FTSE are trade war and Brexit, because it's quite telling that the S&P hasn't moved in the same way as the FTSE. There could be a little bit of trade war in here, because we have seen the Asian markets just start to drift a bit as well. So it's possible that there's some trade war. I guess people are maybe a bit disenfranchised of what was eventually reported. Maybe they weren't that keen on what was eventually reported, but actually, even the Nikkei hasn't really started to show levels that it's really breaking down. So I think the FTSE might be moving on its own axis right now, and I think that axis is probably more down to the negotiations going on with Brexit, because we can see that this has started to break down in the last 4 or 5 days. And when we look at the pound, it really has started to fly in the last 4 or 5 days. So this is where I'm finding correlation. This is where I'm finding that there might be some coupling going on. And this is probably the chart we should be looking at this particular stage when it comes down to making decisions on the FTSE 100. I think it's really good that you are making those connections, that that things are interconnected. But in my personal opinion, this probably oil and the FTSE probably aren't closely aligned enough for it to be the significant driver. And I think we should be looking at what's going on with the pound when we're probably when we're making our decisions on the FTSE for probably the next few weeks actually.
Any changes in that area, mate, in terms of Brexit?
Yeah, actually, there has been. Overnight, Labour tabled an amendment that they wanted to put forward their vision of Brexit, keeping us more closely aligned with the single market and having a customs union. And it was defeated, and we knew that this was going to happen. And Labour have always said that the process that they wanted to go through was general election, their 5 tests of Brexit, and then if it doesn't go to either of those 2 things happen, then they would back a people's vote. They were defeated by, I think it was 240, 323. I've just managed to find the numbers here. So 240 supported it, and 323 were against their motion to keep us more closely aligned. And the next step for them is the people's vote, which they announced straight away. Sir Keir Starmer, the Brexit secretary, said, "I want to underline the commitment we made on Monday that if an amendment is defeated by the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister refuses to if the amendment is defeated and the Prime Minister still refuses to negotiate a close economic relationship, Labour will support or table an amendment in favour of a public vote." So we knew that was coming, and we haven't had any specific jumps off the back of that particular report. But I think now it is pretty much in black and white that they are supporting this people's vote, and on the people's vote there will be something of a leave option, and that leave option may well be Theresa May's leave deal, or it will be Remain. So we are now in this situation where we've got to wait to see whether Parliament passes the agreement for a people's vote to try and unlock the situation, and if that happens, then it's the decision about what goes on the ballot paper. But before we get to that point, it's got to get through Parliament. So at this stage, the second biggest party are supporting a people's vote.
But no influence or change, or it doesn't really mean anything. But why are they calling it a people's vote rather than a second referendum?
I think it would just depend on who was speaking at the time. I mean, they want to call it a people's vote because it doesn't. The referendum was said to be, all deciding, and it was a once in a lifetime and once in a generational opportunity to make a decision and to shape your country. So the fact that they're bringing it back to the people 3 years later, it kind of smacks in the face of democracy. So they probably need to try anyway and label it something else. But ultimately, it's a second referendum. Yeah, I mean, it's not true at all. The only thing is that I mean, in a way, you may as well just say it's a second referendum, but say the reason that the second referendum is here, and it's really because the first referendum had very little in the way of detail. So the decision that was going to be made was always going to be made with one arm effectively tied behind your back. So at least now people can decide with a little bit more clarity.
There's going to be an incredible. In fact, there's now going to be two movies that will both be comedies come out in the next, I don't know, 2 or 3 years. One will be on Trump and the other will be on Brexit. So I'm not sure what they're going to be called yet, but guaranteed they'll be blockbusters.
Yeah, well, but you know what? There'll probably be a whole era. They'll probably cover the era. We've kind of we've had all these movies on the war. Now we'll probably have this into the 21st century movie where it does bring in Brexit, and it brings in Trump, and it brings in North Korea, and I don't know what else would be on there, but because actually everything that then just does fall under the Trump thing. Actually, you know what we haven't talked about is India, and I was questioning whether then we might start to see some moves off the back of the war that's broken out between Pakistan and India.
Yeah, true. I'm not sure how that's going to affect anything. That's the only thing I'm kind of struggling with is exactly what that will do. I guess it depends on outcomes.
Yeah, well, and it depends how much it escalates. I mean, they're both nuclear powers, so if they start pointing some big guns at each other, then I suspect that will probably affect world markets right across the board. So, as you say, right now there's not there's not that escalation that has happened, but there is a significant amount of tension. I had no idea that Imran Khan, the cricket player, is the Prime Minister of Pakistan. I mean, I thought, I don't know. Obviously, there's rivalry between the two countries, but you think being a sportsman, he would probably be a little bit more. I don't know. Maybe just a bit more understanding for his neighbour's plight in some respects, because I always considered sports people to be fairly chummy after the battle was kind of finished on the field.
Yes, that's quite true. Unless you're Pakistani and an Indian,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, it's I suppose right now there's nothing that is shaping up. I don't know whether we have the rupee.
Well, if we had Imran Khan meet with Virat Kohli, things might be a little bit better.
Yeah,
they might as well make Virat Kohli the Prime Minister of India. He's revered as much as anybody else, I think.
Is he standing? Because there's elections coming, isn't there?
Oh, I doubt very much if he would be. He's still got a lot to do in the cricket world.
Oh, okay. I see. Okay. Well, the FTSE 100 is opened up and is drifting to the downside, which is, in some respects, no bad thing. I'd quite like to see, as I say, if this can just. It's only about 10 or so pips away from this particular point now, and that would be a much nicer and cleaner neckline. So I'd be looking for a bounce somewhere around here if it does continue to break down. Looks like there was another 30 pips still that I could have got out of this, but that's no great drama. We're basically waiting for the next chapter. Okay, so quickly on shares. I don't know if you've got anything else you wanted to add right now, Jeff.
No, mate, no.
Okay, so there, I am. Oh yeah, it was the marijuana shares. This is just fascinating. That the news that continues to pop up about what's going on with marijuana and how it may well be the next big movement. I think really kind of means that we're going to have to sit up and listen.
Without a doubt, it's such an incredible product. Yes.
Yeah, but the issue really is that when I'm just going to bring you a little.
Christo, he was a very, very good cricketer. Yes.
Now, so we have to think about metrics. You know, when we're kind of looking at shares, and obviously we know about technical analysis, but you know, when it comes down to shares, we really do need to get under the hood and understand you know, what the fundamentals are telling us. And this is one of the shares that I was looking at yesterday, Kronos Group. Now I just want to kind of show you a comparison between something like this and actually no, let's get rid of this. It's in US shares. Well, this is a company that that I am interested in. Hargreaves Lansdown are an investment company, and when we look at the metrics here, there's a few that that really stand out. Now, what you kind of there's a few things that are really important when it comes down to shares. There's a few things that aren't so important, and when we kind of look down the when we look down the list here, this is really about the city's expectations, and in a lot of respects, this becomes one of the least important, because the city will be looking at certain metrics that may not be of interest to us. I mean, the only thing with it is that if we see a consensus underperform, then we might look at the chart at this point and sorry, and decide that that there's a little bit further for this one to come down. This, as I say, this Hargreaves Lansdown is one that I think is of interest, and I think that it's quite exciting that it is quite low at the minute. We're in comparison to its historical high. 22 million up there, and now we're down to 22 pounds up there, and now we're down to 16 pounds a share down here. So could come a little bit lower, and I'd be looking out. What's that mean?
Who are they and what do they do?
So this is Hargreaves Lansdown. This Hargreaves Lansdown are an investment company. So if you wanted to buy some shares, then you would use these as your broker. They've got many different arms to that. When we look at Hargreaves Lansdown in the financials, then we would see that they have some different arms in the activity breakdown. They have different arms. They've got different products here. The summary says that they operate a large direct-to-investor investment service in the United Kingdom, built around offering tailored to clients' needs. Clients can elect to hold all their funds, stocks, bonds, ETFs, and other financial instruments in a single service with various tax advantages. The company also offers portfolio rebalancing, discretionary services and managed funds, third-party services, savings management, online and apps offerings, and other retirement solutions. The company's clients mostly comprise individual investors and corporate clients. It primarily earns recurring revenue through the administration and management of assets held under its platform, and secondarily earns transactional revenue through stockbroking commissions and initial advisory fees. So the key, really, I think, about this particular summary is it primarily earns recurring revenue through the administration of management of assets held under its platform. So you would make a decision, and every year Hargreaves Lansdown would charge you a specific amount of money to hold on to your shares. So you wouldn't just make one deal and that be done. Hargreaves Lansdown would continue to make money off the back of you making money effectively. And I think as the investment world really starts to become ever more popular, something like Hargreaves Lansdown is in a pretty good place. You know, when we kind of think of different sectors, a sector which offers people a chance to make more money is going to be popular, and my belief is that with companies like Actions to Wealth and a few others that are out there, the education aspect of investing has really stepped up. I mean, it's a shame that they don't offer it in schools, but you know, outside of school, I think extracurriculum activity has really stepped up. So there's a greater opportunity for a company like Hargreaves Lansdown to continue to make money. And then we would look at things like, not to go too much into detail, but this is their dividend, unadjusted dividend payment. So you can see that there are certain things which are just showing that they've got some growth here.
What's that website you're looking at, by the way?
Oh, this is a company called ShareScope. Now you do have to pay for this subscription; it's not free.
Yep.
So yeah. And then you would obviously break down. So we'll go back to the summary, because the summary would just give us an overview. So the city is effectively saying that it's going to be underperforming, so we'd maybe get a better price. This is the valuations of the company. Again, I wouldn't put that too high up in my list when I was really looking down for shares. The forecast for growth, I think, is really good, because it continues to go forward. The potential growth, earnings per share, nice and healthy. Pre-tax profit, nice and healthy. EBIT is whether they can cover their debts. That's nice and healthy. And then the yield and the years paid as well, really healthy. So it's really a very, very good company. Now, the reason that I bring this up is not because I'm saying that we should be buying Hargreaves Lansdown, even though I think this should be in people's portfolio. The reason I bring this up is because when we come back to a marijuana company, look at the data we've got. And this is the thing about all this stuff.
Yep.
It's too young. These companies are too young. But you look at the chart. The chart has really kind of it's gone gangbusters since the turn of the year. I feel like we're 2 months too late on the market, unfortunately. But yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. In many respects, yes, it is. It could well be, and I suppose that's what people are always looking for, aren't they? They're looking for the next Bitcoin. Now, the value has doubled, more than doubled actually, in just the space of the last 2 months. So that just goes to show you the strength of interest in some of these companies, in marijuana companies.
So what's this one? Sorry, what does this one do?
This is called Kronos Group.
And what do they do?
Well, let's bring up the summary of these guys, and they will tell you this as well. Here we go. So Kronos Group is a diversified and vertically integrated cannabis company. Its principal activities involve production and sale of cannabis in federally legal jurisdictions, including Canada and Germany. It sells dried cannabis and cannabis oils under its medical cannabis brand Peace Neutrals. The firm seeks to invest in companies either licensed or actively seeking a license to produce medical marijuana pursuant to Canada's marijuana.
That's important.
So go back. The firm seeks to invest in companies either licensed or actively seeking a license to produce medical marijuana pursuant to Canada's marijuana for medical purpose regulations.
So they're investing in companies that are doing exactly the same as they're doing. Interesting.
Yes, yeah. I mean, this is the same as Hargreaves Lansdown in many respects, because Hargreaves Lansdown will invest in third party investment funds as well, but they would put it under their umbrella. They're kind of the big boy in the playground, but then they would also bring some of the smaller kids into their group.
Yeah, not easy to get a license for medical marijuana.
No, but this is the thing. You see, things are changing, aren't they?
Sorry.
The things are changing. The attitudes towards marijuana are changing.
They are. They'll always be controlling that one very, very closely. And the players that are in the market. This goes to your point. The players that are in the market already are in a very strong position because the security you need to set up one of these things. Certainly in Australia, I'm not too sure about Colombia, it might be different, but there are very, very strong restrictions around medical marijuana.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe we see.
Players that are in the market right now are in a pretty strong position, I would have thought.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, and you know, this is the one that I've been looking at, and you'd have to go through these numbers, and you can find Kronos Group. This is the thing. I mean, you know, ShareScope's really good for mining, but actually, it doesn't give you any more information than you could find on Yahoo Finance, or if you had a company like Hargreaves Lansdown where you were buying the shares, they would give you all the same detail. It might not be so nicely laid out, but they give you all the detail that you need. Um, so you know, this is just one of the companies that I think it's the share of the week for me. You know, so if we're thinking about a portfolio, and obviously if you're building a portfolio, you want it to be as diverse as possible. But I kind of like this particular field, and I like the potential and possibility for it to really take off. I mean, it looks like we've missed a run, but when you consider what happened with Bitcoin, who knows? Maybe this is the next Bitcoin, and maybe this will end up looking actually very, very cheap. So I'll be looking.
Weekly chart you're looking at?
This was a daily chart, so this is the weekly.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the weekly. Anything that comes back to 13 obviously would be of interest. I think if we, and I would suggest as well that yeah, anything that dips into this area, I might even be interested in 18 or something. But yeah, somewhere around about the 15 mark would be really really attractive, I think. So it's currently at 21.33. So I'm going to keep my eye on Kronos, and if it comes back a little bit, then I think I'd like to pick something up here. It is in overbought territory here. You can see that by the red shading. So on the longer term time frame, it does suggest that it's overbought. A lot of excitement, I think, came because of a deal that they had done with some of the Canadian companies. But let's see what happens
So if
with
you
that.
bought Kronos and Sterling 6 weeks ago, you'd be in pretty good shape right now.
I think you probably would, mate. Yeah, I think you'd be very, very happy right now. So look, it's on a monthly. Yeah, the monthly is maybe suggesting that we could be getting some sort of pullback as well. So look for a pullback on this one. This is as I say, mate. This is the tip of the week. I'll try and bring you a different share every week, but this is my tip this week.
All right, happy days. Sounds good, mate. I don't even think it's too much point looking at 30-minute charts, to be fair. The euro seems to be going okay, and that's probably all I'm seeing at the moment. But I'm not going to do anything, so there's absolutely no point. So I'm pretty much ready to wrap up and go to a meeting.
Yep. Yeah, sounds good, mate. Sounds good. I hope that's all right with you guys. I know it's a little bit earlier than normal, but I don't think Jeff and I have got too much to do. We got end of the month today and end of the week tomorrow, so we're not too keen. FTSE 100 has managed to get down to the level that I think were interested now in looking for buy signals. So you know, it can continue to drift a little bit low. I'll be absolutely fine with that. And then looking for buy signals somewhere along this particular line, or maybe it holds up here, or maybe these lows. So it's got to carve it out. But this is a good thing for us, because what this does mean is that the market is probably going to be in pretty good shape by Monday to look for some potential buying opportunities.
Sounds good, mate. I'll be looking for that, and if I can close out my euro yen at profit, that would be nice. And just nothing's going to happen on euro pound for me until next week, at least next week, maybe even a couple of weeks, I would think. Well, depending on what happens, of course. We cannot know, unfortunately. Well, it's fortunately, really, because if we knew, that means everyone would know, and there'd be absolutely no point in doing what we do. So it's a bit of a moot point at the end of the day. So, guys,
Yeah.
a question or two, then I think we'll call it a day and have a lovely weekend, and we'll catch up with you next week.
Yeah, have a great weekend, guys. I hope you enjoyed the show this week. I think we both have. I think it's been a decent week for the two of us, and
covered a bit of territory.
Really appreciate the participation. What's this, Christo's arm of Baba? What's this? I'm gonna get a virus from this, am I? I will look at that if it's a safe. Is this to do with
Alibaba?
Don't know. Is this to do with shares in marijuana? I'm gonna be looking further into this. My friend sent me a report on it, so I might have a little update even as early as next week. But
yeah, share it, mate. I'm interested.
Cool. Okay. All right. Well, let's look into that. I will have a look at your link there, Christo. Oh, cool. Thanks. Do you know what? This would be great, actually. I'm really keen for us to all start sharing any stock ideas and opportunities, and we can look into some of the details on that stuff too. So thanks for that, buddy. Really appreciate it, and we'll look at that next week as well. So maybe. We probably can't schedule in a day that is going to be shares day because we don't know how the markets can behave. But let's say the next quiet session, we'll look into this one and have some updates on anything else that I can find.
Happy days. I'll sit and be an interested spectator, but I'm not a massive fan of shares.
No, that's fine, mate. Do you know what I think? I think as much as anything else, for us to have some for us to have some extra knowledge in how to unscramble the data points would be great, you know. And it's just a bit of fun, really, isn't it? Another way that we can fill some airtime as well in a show that sometimes can be tricky when the market isn't doing what we need it to do.
And that does happen, absolutely.
Okay, well, my computer looks like it's frozen up, so I'm going to have to clear off anyway, buddy. So let's have a quick chat after the show. And for everyone else, see you Monday, same trade time, same trade channel. Have a great weekend.
Ditto. See you guys. Bye-bye for now.